This is the last section in civics. So I just want to say, if you are remote and I won't see you, to have a great summer. Enjoy your summer, and I look forward to being back in class with you next year doing world history. So we're going to talk about running for office, the process. Americans spend more than $3 billion on national, state, or local elections every 4-year period. It takes a lot of money to run for president. In 2016, Trump's campaign spent $600 million. Hillary's campaign spent $1.2 billion. Campaign workers use numerous techniques to raise money and support. This is the process of going around the communities trying to gain support. Many times this involves door-to-door campaigning, or what's called canvassing. Polls are done to see who's winning, get some ideas about that. Really doesn't mean nothing because it kind of fluctuates, and one big issue can ruin an entire campaign. But you get an idea about who's winning through these polls. When a famous or popular person supports a candidate, it really helps them. So that's the reason you'll be like, hey, I'm LeBron James, and I support so-and-so for president, because that boosts that person's support. Oh, hey, if LeBron's voting for him, I'm voting for him. That's kind of the mentality. The idea is to make a connection between the candidate and the person endorsing them. Propaganda, which isn't technically propaganda, but propaganda is an attempt to promote a particular idea or person. Propaganda is usually used in a negative way, but it can also be in terms of like trying to support these candidates and stuff like that. This is more of an endorsement than propaganda. Campaign workers spend a lot of time and money making a candidate have a certain image. They want them to look a certain way. They want them to talk a certain way and stuff to stick out that's positive. Candidates may use television and newspaper ads to do this, because television ads get stuck in people's mind. How many people, when you see the name Alexander Shannara, thinks, call me Alabama, because that's his campaigns. And so because of that, stuff sticks in your head. So they try to advertise by using billboards, TV, internet, things like that for advertisement. Television expenses cost tens of thousands of dollars a minute. There's also costs for travel, printing things to mail out, and other campaign costs. Typical candidates spend between $1.5 million and $15 million in a congressional race. That's a lot of money in a congressional race, especially when you look at the fact there's 435 members of the House of Representatives that every 2 years they're running. You've got about 33, 34 senators. So you're looking at about 470 congressional races happening every 2 years. And when you spend $1.5 to $15 million, that's a lot of money that adds up. In 1971, Congress passed the Federal Election Campaigning Act to place controls on campaign financing. It requires public disclosure of each candidate's spending, so you're not buying votes. It limits the amount that individuals or groups can contribute directly to a campaign. Because you want to make sure that there's not things going on that's illegal. In 1974, an amendment to the FECA created the Federal Elections Commission, or the FEC, which monitors campaign spending. In 1976, in the Supreme Court's case of Buckley versus Vallejo, they ruled the government can regulate election contributions to keep out corruption. To keep more people not being corrupt, they can regulate it. They also ruled as against freedom of speech to limit how much a candidate can put into their own campaign. So they can put however much they want to. Donald Trump put a lot of money into his own campaign. They also established public funding for presidential elections by creating the Presidential Election Campaign Fund. It allows people to check a box on their annual income tax return and donate $3 to the fund every year. After the national conventions, the two major party candidates receive equal shares of this money from the fund if they do not accept any other direct contribution. So it's a way of trying to encourage them to do that. Most money comes from private sources rather than public funding. Usually this comes a lot through PACs, political action committees, which are organizations set up by special interest groups to raise money for candidates. The Democrats even have what's called super PACs, which can allot where their votes are going to go, which is, and this is like not in elections, this is like primaries. They can allow, these different groups can allow where they want their support to go. Soft money is donations given to a particular party and not designated for a particular candidate's campaign. This is just given to the political parties and use it for whatever campaign needs it. They don't place no limits on soft money, so that way is another way of kind of getting around that. There's also an issue on spending money on advertisements for campaigns that do not come from the candidate's money. So, you'll see this advertisement is paid for by Joe Biden for president. Incumbents or politicians have already been elected to office. In this previous election, Donald Trump was the incumbent. And of course, that's on everything. Congress, mayor, everything. In 2002, however, things changed as Congress passed legislation prohibiting national political parties, federal office holders, and federal candidates from raising soft money. Critics claim it violates the First Amendment. They changed the way that politicians raise money because they couldn't directly raise soft money. And that brings us to an end. There's that. This brings us to an end of our notes for this year. Again, have a great summer. I've enjoyed having you in class, and I look forward to next year.